Hello, my name is Dale Maley. Today we're going to review a model that I just recently finished. It's a hand cranked marble model and it uses a wood chain to lift the marbles. You can see the hand crank in the lower right of the picture. Can't really see it, but behind the crank there's a 20-to-1 gear reduction ratio, which is a worm gear and a spur gear. I need 20-to-1 because the model runs okay at 5 RPM and children can crank up to 100 RPM. So 100 divided by 5 is a 20-to-1 ratio that I needed for this model. I'm also using a wood chain and carriers to lift the marbles up about 16 inches. There's 84 chain links in the wood chain. There's 21 marble carriers. I'm using the larger 1-inch diameter marbles. I have 2 dividers which automatically switch the direction of the marbles, and I have 3 blue bowls, as you can see in the picture. Now, how did I get the idea to use a wood chain to raise the marbles? Well, I grew up on a farm in central Illinois, a grain farm, and one of the features of a grain farm is you almost always have an elevator. So at harvest time, the grain, you would take it, transport it to the elevator from a truck or wagon, dump it in, then it would raise it very high, and then release it, and then you could route it using round pipes to either bins or other trucks or other buildings, as shown in the upper right hand picture. Now our particular one used a belt, a very long vertical belt. I later found out that some of them also used chain. But on our model, we had steel buckets that were bolted onto the rubber belt. The grain would enter at the lower right hand side from an auger, fill the buckets as they went by. Buckets would take it to the top, dump it out, and then it would be routed to the round pipes in whatever direction you wanted to go. A couple years ago, I built my first wood chain model, as shown in the picture here. It's basically like a bicycle chain with 2 sprockets and a crank. And I was able to make that just fine, so I knew that I could use wood chain on this next project. So what I had in mind for the wood chain was to come up with a carrier for the marble, as shown here, where that carrier would fit on the outside links of the wood chain. Then the carrier would load the marble in, take it to the top, and then dump it out, very similar to the grain elevator concept. It turned out that the carrier was the most important and most difficult part of this model to design. So I kind of show the sequence of events here starting with the upper left, and I'll have a chute that brings the marble up next to the carrier, and it'll have a slope on it, so the marble will want to enter the carrier. On the second picture down on the left hand side, I removed the one side of the carrier so you can see inside the carrier. And then on the bottom left hand corner you can see where the marble's starting to enter the carrier. It's a slope bottom, so it's going to go to the back. Also, you can't see it as well, but the back of that carrier, kind of like the back seat, that's also tapered, and we'll see why in a moment. In the middle, in the top, we've got the marble loaded. Now it's ready to start moving upwards where it's going to dump it out. When it gets near the top, it starts going around the sprocket, so I show it when it's rotated halfway at 45 degrees. Then the bottom middle, I show where it's now in the unload position. And I'm going to change views because it's easier to see. Go to the upper right hand corner, and you're kind of looking back at the carrier. And now you can see where that back is sloped downwards. That's to let the marble come out. And the second picture on the right hand side, you can see it's halfway out, and then on the bottom right hand corner you can see it's fully unloaded. This photo shows the 84 chain links I had to make out of red oak, and I kind of learned a long time ago, always make some spares, so I have 3 spares in addition to the 84 that's needed for the model. This photo shows most of the 21 marble carriers that I had to build, and I made 1 spare. Not all 21's here because I had a couple in another location. But each one of these has like 5 parts, so you're talking about over 100 pieces to make the 21 marble carriers. The first step in the build process, once I had the wood chain links made, was to assemble up the chain and then build the vertical supports to hold the 2 sprockets, and go ahead and mount the chain. So here's the chain before I started adding carriers to it. I designed this model using the drafting software called SketchUp. And here's the SketchUp model when I was all done with this project. Now for the fun part, let's see this model in action. So, in summary, this video explains how I made a marble lifting mechanism that uses a grain elevator chain concept with carriers that discharges the marbles into 2 dividers with 3 bowls and 1 bell. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe. Thank you.